Inside the Woods, number 7. Core teachers, let's go. What's up, Fairfield Woods Middle School? Welcome to the number 7 ever edition of Inside the Woods and the second episode of our 4-part series featuring FWMS staff. For this month's part, me and Chase had the opportunity to sit down with a FWMS teacher from every core subject to get a glimpse into their story, day-to-day life, struggles, and what they love most about teaching. To start, I spoke with the brand new Team 8S Social Studies intern alongside Mrs. Tara Malecki, Mr. Aidan McLaughlin. Mr. McLaughlin, welcome to Inside the Woods.
Thank you, I'm very excited.
Gotcha. So, what's the most frustrating part of your job, especially as an intern, but as a teacher teaching social studies in the 8th grade as a whole?
I think the most frustrating part is separating, all of the content that I have from college, right? Separating that so that I'm able to teach 8th graders, right, content that's suitable for them. Like skimming down. 8th graders really need to know, right? Not like some lofty, college theory, right? But real U.S. history in this class. I think that's the trickiest part.
And now for the last question, separately, what is your absolute favorite part about your position here as an intern and then your job as a social studies teacher?
I think that the different kinds of opportunities that I've had this year, right? So starting with you guys in 6th grade when your teacher retired, or filling in when your other teacher got hurt in the winter. Having that diversity of experience. I've had so many different experiences that have allowed me to really understand what a middle school is like and prepare myself for encountering people of all ages, right? And so I've been so impressed by all of the people who go to school here. You are all unbelievable students and thinkers, and I've learned a lot from you guys.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. McLaughlin.
All right.
That was a great interview. Next up, I had the opportunity to speak with one of the OG teachers here at Fairfield Woods Middle School, the Team 6W Language Arts teacher, Mrs. Judith Neary.
Great, Miss Neary, welcome to Inside the Woods.
Thank you.
So, Miss Neary, what kind of inspired you to be a teacher at first when you were in school?
When I was in school, I had never even dreamed about being a teacher. It was as far as this thing from my mind. However, when my children were young, and they were in nursery school, I was asked to be a nursery school helper. And I said yes, because the schedule worked really, really, really well. Well, there was a woman there who was doing creative movement, and she stopped doing it because she got pregnant. So they asked me, because I taught aerobics, they asked me if I would take over, and I said, sure. So I started teaching creative movement in the nursery schools and daycare centers. And that was when my daughter was 3 years old. She's now going to be 40, so do the math. And it worked out really well. And it grew, and I started doing children's entertainment on the weekend, birthday party entertainment on the weekend. I was known as Miss Judy. And my little job, company, whatever you want to call it, it's called Kids Movement. And I did that for 7 years. And then my husband lost his job, and I said, well, I really like teaching the kids. Mm-hmm. So the most logical step for me is to go back to school, get my master's, and get my teaching certification.
Yeah.
And here I am.
You've stuck at Woods so long. Why do you choose to stay at Woods, and how do you think you've kept this job?
Well, I love Woods. It's my second home. It's like a second family. I love Woods. When Ludlow was opening up, I was asked if I wanted to go to Ludlow. And I said, no, I want to stay. And the principal at that time, Mrs. Cox, said, thank you. I want you to stay too. So I've been here ever since. It's a great school. It's a wonderful community.
Well, thank you so much, Miss Neary. I had a great time interviewing you here today.
You're so very welcome.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Now for a very cool teaching story from the 7th and 8th grade Spanish teacher, Mrs. Jane Viglioti.
Viglioti, welcome to Inside the Woods.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for coming by.
Speaking Spanish, are you a native speaker and you kind of became into teaching kids, or did you learn Spanish specifically to teach?
Yeah, no, I'm a native speaker. My parents are from Colombia. So originally when I was little, I only spoke Spanish. So when I started in kindergarten, I had to learn how to speak English. So that was crazy. And then I was actually originally an elementary school teacher, and the town that I was living in needed a Spanish teacher at the high school. So 1 week I went from teaching third grade to high school kids. So that was very exciting. And that was the beginning of my journey as a Spanish teacher. But I love it because I love my culture. I love to share the culture with the kids. And yeah, so.
So what kind of education did you have to go to from that just 1 week of subbing? Did you have to take any other education to become a fully fledged Spanish teacher as you are today?
Yes. So to become just even a teacher, you need a bachelor's degree. So I have my bachelor's degree. I have one in psychology and then with a minor in education. Mm-hmm. And that's how I became a regular elementary school teacher. And then from there, I did have to take extra courses. I had to prove that I knew how to speak Spanish, learn some teaching methods. And then I went on to get a master's in learning and thinking theory, like integrative thinking.
Coming up now is one of the 6W science teachers, Mrs. Kathleen Davenport, for her great narrative.
Mrs. Davenport, welcome to Inside the Woods.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so glad you are able to be here. How'd you really get your career started in teaching, and explain every step you've had here before you get to Woods?
Okay, so I come from a family of educators, actually. Both my parents are teachers. I was a teacher for about 8 years. I was in private schools. I started subbing in different schools and decided that being back in public school would be wonderful, and here I am at Woods. So I've been around the block a lot.
So last year when I had you as a teacher, you were a math teacher. Now if you look around this room, you are now a science teacher. How were you able to make that transition, and how great has it been? But what have also been the biggest challenges making a transition like that?
So the transition has been a good one for me, and I had to learn a whole new curriculum. And quite honestly, I had to learn about the solar system. I had to learn about weather, and here I am now teaching it. But I do think next year will be easier, though, to deliver the curriculum to students because I've already gone through it once.
How are you able to really make kids engaged in your work?
We try to do some experiments. We try to do some lab work. We try to do some simulations on the computer. So just trying to mix it up for the students to kind of keep them guessing and keep them active.
Awesome, Mrs. Davenport. Thank you so much for doing this and down with me and doing this interview.
Thank you. Lots of fun. Thanks, guys.
Now for one of Wood's newest teachers with an interesting career change story, the Team 7S math teacher, Mrs. Dana Iannacone.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you were able to come on. At what age did you really start wanting to get into teaching? And then what did you really do up to now to get to the point where now you're at Woods?
I, believe it or not, did not always want to be a teacher. I wanted to be a lawyer when I was growing up. And that didn't work out. And life had other plans. And so I got into teaching right out of college without a degree in teaching. I probably shouldn't say that. Maybe we should edit that out. I always loved math, so I kind of got into math at the 6th grade level at a very small Catholic school. And now 15 years later, here I am in Fairfield Woods.
What do you like most about math as opposed to any other subject to teach?
It's a great question. So I love the fact that math has one right answer, but more than one way to get there, because not every student learns the same. So a method might work well for one student, but different for someone else. So I do see some challenges with homework completion and assignment completion and turning things in on time. But I think that's also part of my job, is to help students kind of get better at these kinds of executive functioning skills.
What I like about you is that I saw this on an Instagram post by Fairfield Woods not too long ago, is it seems we see the lines on the ground here. It's just like, it seems that everything you do, you try to make it as fun as possible, try to get kids as engaged as possible. How important is it to you to kind of make learning different and make it a little more fun?
So yeah, I do like to do things that are a little outside the box, no pun intended. Anytime I can get kids on their feet, having fun, they're more engaged in the work. Let's be honest, math is not the most interesting all the time. I can admit that, but if I can do it in a fun way that really grasps at attention and really grasps at the fun aspect, then no one's falling asleep in math class. No one can go home and say I didn't learn anything today.
Mrs. Iannacone, thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Now next up is one of the OG building subs here at Fairfield Woods Middle School, Miss Epstein's mom, Mrs. Fitzpatrick. Mrs. Fitzpatrick, Mrs. Fitzpatrick, welcome to Inside the Woods.
Thank you very much, and thanks for asking to interview me.
So, a cool job. Now, can you tell us a little bit about your day-to-day life like how you go from, how do you get your assignments in the morning, and how you pick what classes you decide to take.
So it's an electronic system, and usually I get my assignment the night before. So I'll get a call, it's called ASAP. I'll get a call saying you've been assigned to so-and-so. At that point, I can confirm or I can reject. So I will take all the academic classes, with the exception of music. Then I come in here, and Mr. Seltzer, 99% of the time, keeps me in the assignment that I was given through the electronic system. And if there's an opening in the day, usually every teacher has 2 openings in a day. If I have 2 openings, he'll put me someplace else for 1 opening, and then I get a free period. So I like it better when I know the night before. If I don't know the night before, then my alarm is set for 6:15, and I get online because that's when they'll start assigning. It's between 6:15 and 6:45.
About that. Okay. About lesson plans, what kind of struggles do you face with interpreting lesson plans? If from bad handwriting, if they're handwritten, to unclear instructions, to just too many words and you can't fulfill everything?
I think my challenge comes when I am doing French and Spanish, and even though they're written in English, I can't help students when they're stuck on an ed puzzle or if they've gotten a packet to do. I like to be able to help the students. So it helps me if they've gotten a packet, like today they got a packet, but the teacher did not give me the key, which is the answers. They had left me the answers, then I could have helped the students a little bit more. So that's a challenge. I don't want to sit and babysit. I don't want to put my feet up on the chair and let the students do whatever they want. I want to come in knowing that I've done something good for the day. And I think if the teacher gives me good lesson plans, it helps a lot.
And now, last but not least, here is Chase's interview with the Team 8W special education teacher, Mrs. Jacqueline
Mrs.
Lockwood.
Lockwood, welcome to Inside the Woods.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you were able to come on. Break down kind of your career before Woods, how you got your career started and how you got up to the point where you're at now.
So it all originally started, I have an older brother with Down syndrome. We're 1.5 years apart, so that really is where the light was sparked to become a special ed teacher. I also worked at Bunnell High School for a half a year before I got the job here at Fairfield Woods in 2017.
Break down everything that goes into being a special ed teacher and kind of your day-to-day.
Oh boy, that's a lot. So it all starts off with homeroom like everybody else does. I don't typically have a homeroom. And then I have learning centers depending on students' IEPs, which is called an individual education plan, which is kind of cool. Then I'll push into a math class. I'll push into an LA class, sometimes in social studies and in science as well. So it's 4 gen ed classes that you kind of have to understand all of the academics in.
What would be your main piece of advice to an aspiring special ed teacher who wants to get to the role where you're at now?
Always stay light. Pick and choose your battles. I mean, that's one of the biggest things.
Alongside the 8th grade special ed teacher, Mrs. Lockwood, I am Chase Coburn. Back to our.
I know we usually don't have trivia for our Inside the Woods show, but here is today's trivia, since it's a Friday show. Starting with A. Who does Mr. McLaughlin intern with? B. What did Miss Neary do before she became a full teacher? What is Miss Viglioti's ethnicity? What subject does Miss Davenport teach last year? What profession did Miss Iannacone try before she became a teacher? And that's it for the couple of trivia questions. As usual, QR code is at the top right-hand corner of the screen if you would like to. And with that, thank you so much for listening to the 7th ever episode of Inside the Woods and the 2nd episode of our 4-part series featuring all the FWMS staff. And thank you again to Mr. McLaughlin, Miss Neary, Mrs. Viglioti, Miss Davenport, Mrs. Iannacone, Mrs. Fitzpatrick, and Mrs. Lockwood for joining us on the show today. And alongside Chase Coburn and cameraman Posh Washani and Van Dorp, you guys know the drill. Signing off from here at Fairfield Woods Middle School, I am Arav Kapoor. Have a good day.